All right, let's dive into what is probably the single most important new skill for product managers working in AI right now, evaluations. If you're out there building AI products, you absolutely need to know how to figure out what's really going on under the hood. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
Look, don't just take my word for it. This quote really sets the stage. Some of the top minds in this space are calling this the highest return on investment activity a PM can do. We're not talking about a nice-to-have skill here. This is core, a real make-or-break capability. It's not about just shipping features anymore. It's about shipping products that actually solve the right problems.
And here's the real challenge, isn't it? We've all done it. You play around with your own product and you think, yeah, this feels kind of good. Or maybe, something's a little off. But that's just a vibe check. It doesn't scale, it's not repeatable, and it definitely doesn't give your engineering team a concrete problem they can sink their teeth into. So how do we get serious about this?
Well, we get serious by treating evals not as some super technical task for the engineers, but as a core product discovery discipline. This is all about building a repeatable system to understand what your user is actually experiencing, and, more importantly, finding all the spots where your product is falling short. You know, the number one mistake I see teams make is they immediately grab some trendy, off-the-shelf metric like a hallucination score. It sounds impressive, right? You can slap it on a dashboard, but so often, that number has zero connection to the actual reasons your users are getting frustrated and churning. You end up chasing a score that doesn't actually help you make the product better. So, and this is the crucial mindset shift, you've got to flip the script. Don't start with the metrics. Start with discovery. The goal isn't to measure stuff just for the sake of measuring it. The goal is to systematically uncover the most painful, most important ways your product is failing your users. It's pure, unadulterated problem finding. And the good news is there's a playbook for this. It's called error analysis, and it's a really structured process to turn all that vague, fuzzy user feedback into a prioritized list of problems your team can actually go and solve.
This playbook really boils down to 3 core steps. First, you're going to appoint a single owner of quality, the benevolent dictator. Second, that person is going to dive deep into the data with a process called open coding. And third, you'll find the patterns in all that data using something called axial coding. Now, these terms might sound a little academic, but I promise you the process is incredibly intuitive.
I just love this term, a benevolent dictator. This is your single source of truth on what good actually looks like. And guess what? It's often the PM. Now, why would you do this? It's simple. It cuts right through the noise of paralysis by committee, where you've got 5 people in a room arguing over whether a response was a 3 or a 4 out of 5. Instead, you get a consistent, high-quality signal and you get it fast.
Okay, let's make this feel real. Imagine you're the PM for an AI assistant that helps people find and lease apartments. A potential renter sends this message. This isn't just a casual question, this is a direct, high-intent, money-on-the-table kind of query.
And the AI just shuts them down. Technically, maybe the AI is correct, but from a product perspective, this is a massive failure. This is open coding right here in action. The benevolent dictator, that's you, the PM, looks at this and doesn't just say that's bad, you write a specific free-form critique. This was a total dead end. It should have immediately handed this valuable lead off to a human agent.
So after you review maybe 100 or so of these kinds of interactions, you're going to have a list of notes that looks something like this. And let's be honest, it's a mess. It's totally unstructured. It's qualitative. You've got words like janky, awkward, hallucinated. This is the raw material. This is the chaos right before the clarity. And now for the magic trick. This is the part where we bring order to all that chaos. We're going to use a technique called axial coding, which again is just a fancy term for finding patterns, to turn that messy list of notes into a data-driven product roadmap. And this table just illustrates the payoff so perfectly. You take all those free-form, subjective notes, and you start grouping them into categories, and suddenly, boom, you have a pivot table. You're not guessing anymore. You now know for a fact that conversation flow issues are your number one biggest problem, followed very closely by human handoff failures. And visualizing it like this just makes it crystal clear. You've literally transformed subjective vibe checks into a prioritized list of the most impactful problems you need to solve. Now you can walk into your next planning meeting and say, team, we need to focus all our energy on fixing our conversation flow. It's our number one failure mode by a long shot, and here is the data to prove it. Okay, so you've found your biggest problems. That is a huge win. But as a PM, I know you're already thinking, this manual process is great, but it's not going to scale.
So the next phase is all about automating this intelligence, so you can track these specific failures over time automatically. So for each of those failure categories you just identified, you have to decide on the right tool for the job. You ask yourself, is this failure objective or subjective? If it's objective, like checking if the AI produced valid JSON, you can just write a simple, rule-based test in code. Easy. But for the subjective stuff, like was the handoff handled gracefully, you need a much more sophisticated tool, an LLM as a judge.
Now, this is a really crucial point. Building a reliable AI judge is not about writing one magic prompt and calling it a day. It's a rigorous, systematic process. You're basically taking all those brilliant, human-labeled decisions from your benevolent dictator, that's your ground truth, and you are systematically training and validating an LLM judge to replicate that expert's thinking at massive scale.
So let's kind of zoom out and bring this all together. Let's talk about the real goal here, because it's really easy to get lost in the weeds of building these evals and totally forget why we're even doing it in the first place.
Listen, the goal is not to build some fancy, perfect-looking dashboard that gets ignored after the first week. We have all seen those dashboards. A chart that shows a 95% success rate is completely useless if that so-called success rate doesn't actually reflect the real, lived user experience. The real goal is this, a flywheel, a system of continuous improvement. You discover real failures, you build automated tests to track them, and then you integrate those tests directly into your development cycle. So now when an engineer makes a change that accidentally breaks the human handoff logic, your system catches it before it ever gets out to users. That is how you build trust and actually improve the product day after day. So I'll leave you with this question to take back to your team. What's the single most important way your product is failing its users right now that you don't even know about yet? Because the most dangerous problems are always the ones you can't see. This playbook gives you a systematic way to find them. And in the world of AI products, that is the ultimate competitive advantage.